Let me read my very long title that is just a rant my brain decided to type. Everyone ready?
Yep.
Honestly, I'm very sleep deprived. This is how the words flow. I'm sorry, YouTube. God, I should go to bed earlier. I'm just so happy to be able to hang out with friends over Discord. Man, I'm happy to have such a nice group of friends. Like, holy fuck, I'm lucky. Thank God I got them in my family and Mason and all my other shit. God, I love Mason. He's so cute and patient with me. He's always trying so hard to do his best. God, I'm proud of all he does. Okay, here's the poem. Ooh woo. The sun broke upon the damaged land, and those who survived sat upon the sand. The pandas had socked their king, and smacked the queen's melons and bounced them like a spring. Those who perished left a slime, as the blood sport of war has raged over time.
That is
The
really
end.
good.
Damn.
Smacking boobies.
There is my
No,
shit
it's
poem.
metaphor.
No, it's
Oh,
not.
the metaphors, guys. Gotta analyze.
It's just boobs. Okay, who's next?
Looks like Kenzie. Sure wrote more, man.
Just hisses.
I've never been super fond of reading, but here we go.
Welcome to hell, brother.
What Hulk Hogan
A
says
lake
when you
upon a
arrive.
horizon. A lake upon a horizon, oozing with the blue and gold slime. Down where the melons growed wild and free. Kids live barefoot, no need for socks or shoes. But after everything gets dark, it begins. In the old arena held for gladiator fights, a new blood sport arises. A fight to see the most damage done, a battle of wits and cunning maneuvers. This is panda brawling. Mosos, a fearless warrior, is the oldest panda in the ring. She fights to protect her cubs, Shin, Chu, and Li. Tai Li is the newest bear brought up in this awful world. He's sweet and won't hum or fly, but he must defend himself to survive another day. The fight between these two bears lasted a long time, longer than most would say it's necessary. Mosos had lunged at Tai Li as the young bear squatted away from her mighty paw. She saw how scared he was and sneezed, letting him know that their fight was nothing more than play. The humans who watched on had no idea of animal mannerisms and were utterly astonished that both bears retreated unscathed. Mozos was seen in the recreational pen, tending to a wound of Chu, a few claw scratches from another cub. Tai Li had a piece of meat in his jaws and gently set it before the cub and his mother. Mozos looked up from her young in mock bewilderment. She started to wake Tai Li any time she woke her cubs. She taught defense, never the offense. Tai Li became one of her own kin. They were never paired in a fight since the last. One evening, after a particularly brutal clash, Mozos came into the pen with blood pooling around her. She slumped over the cubs and looked to Tai Li. He had to protect the cubs now. She had truly been defeated. He must care for his brothers now. He must fight to eat.
Damn.
Ow. My heart.
It's basically
Did a
just
panda die?
yeah. Mozos, the mighty panda mama, died.
Jesus.
Oh, I feel you happening.
Rest in peppers.
Okay, next is Mason.
Oh no.
Oh,
Oh,
Alright,
I
so
just remember we're getting to.
Are we starting on part 2?
Part
or
2.
Do we need a season 1 recap?
Nope, no recaps. Just do it.
Alright, rad.
Sorry, Kenzie.
I'm prepared, I guess.
Oh boy. Oh no. I see stuttering in the text.
There's just no
Oh,
openings
no.
or a woes. It's fine. I changed the name of the other guy to Raul instead of Raphael because I am horrible at spelling.
That's
What?
That's
It's a great
it.
character arc. What? No, I'm just giving context
Okay.
because I got bad at spelling. So proud.
Oh. Oh. Oh no. Oh no.
Mason, don't die on us.
I need a Diet Dr. Pepper break.
You mean a Diet Sam's Cola?
Yes.
I need a fucking shot of alcohol.
Where's the Irish whiskey?
Try writing this shit, all right?
Mason, you could totally continue that story.
Yeah.
You could. You could
I'm
and you should.
thinking of writing a 12-part series called Big Bear in the Open Road, which kicks off after this. He's got that shipping deal. He's got Raoul to see again. Jeez, we already got a
Mason.
book deal.
Okay, who's next?
It should be Izzy.
Yeah, it's me.
Oh, Raoul.
Okay, guys.
Such a hunk. But Izzy, do your story, please.
Oh yeah, sorry, I got distracted.
So we stop talking about stupid fandom shit.
All right, this is a continuation from my first story. I will not recap what happened. Just watch the video when it comes out. All right. Work day. I arrived at work on another really hot summer day. I entered the zoo through the employee doors, already exhausted from the heat, and in a bad mood from some troubles at home. Don't get me wrong, I love my job, but today just wasn't my day. And it didn't get any better either. I was thankful that I was smart enough to pack a lunch inside my cooled lunchbox. I pulled out one of my bottles of water that I was saving for later and downed it then and there. I shuffled my way to the main building and punched in for work, water still dripping down my face. "Hey, Sammy!" one of my coworkers greeted me as they ran past me down the hallway. I then took one of the zoo vehicles to my department to start my workday. I work with the adorable pandas. I arrive and the full-timers are there who have already prepped the food and supplies needed for the day. I was mostly there to fill in the blanks and to supervise during the later hours. It was a few hours into my shift, and my stomach was growling audibly, and I was worried my coworkers would hear. I took my lunch break and broke out my juicy melons that I had cut up that morning. I am enjoying my meal when I heard a sudden scream outside. I rush out to the break room to see the zoo enveloped in abrupt chaos. The zoo guests are panicked and running in the direction of the exits. The employees are wide-eyed and in shock. I reach my nearest coworker and ask, "What the heck is going on?" My coworker just pointed to the panda pen, where I look in horror to see something equal to the aftermath of a blood sport. The pandas were attacking each other, and their living space looked ravaged. One panda was hopefully just passed out on the ground, while the other two were locked in battle. Someone was trying desperately to get them away from each other using the panda stick. I'm sorry.
Panda stick.
I was gonna use whacking stick because from the game, but it turned into panda stick. Okay. I looked around as I realized the panic was not limited to the panda pen. Many of the enclosures were having the same issues. Animals left and right were turning on each other, and there was no explanation as to why. I watch as the damage changes from ravaged enclosures to the panicked guests smashing building windows. One of the loose rocks from a crowd hits the panda enclosure. My blood turns to ice as the panda who was the victor turned to see the newly made opening. It charged through the hole, catching a few glass shards unfazed. At this point, I had started to run in the opposite direction, but it was too late. I felt teeth sink into my leg, and I let out a screech. Pain shot through my leg, and I felt blood run down to my socks. "Get off of her!" I heard a familiar voice yell. It was Mason! My coworker who greeted me when I got there earlier that day. He yanked the panda off my side, and I fell back breathing heavily. Mason shoved the panda best he could into the enclosure, as another coworker blocked off the hole with some buckets. I stumbled forward, slightly curious as to how the panda would be acting now. It gave me a menacing glare, and I noticed some strange liquid dripping from its mouth. Slime? No, that doesn't look right. As I back away from my attacker, I see Mason's eyes staring at something behind me in horror. Before I could turn around to see, I heard a terrifying roar, and everything went black. Sammy died, by the way.
Izzy, for a sec, I thought you were like, it was gonna be me as the main character. Because it was the zookeeper and Mason.
It might be you, secretly. I don't know. It could be.
Oh god.
But you died, so you have to reincarnate into Sydney, and then you and Mason get together.
Dun, dun, dun.
So which one are we doing next then?
Amber.
Killer
Amber. Gotta
pandas.
click on Amber.
Ellen was a beautiful young woman back in her day. She used to have long, shining waves of brunette hair and cheekbones that could cut coconuts with one slam of her thick face.
What?
But most
Face
importantly,
plant.
she was a star when it came to athletics. Everyone admired her for her insane, bulging thighs that could crush melons with a single squeeze. Unfortunately, as time passed on, she became pressed for money because of her student loans and business management. Perhaps she could have paid them off, but she had instead found an unassertive, hulking man that would bow to her every will. Once that happened, she dropped right out and had 6 children in her cozy cul-de-sac. Man, did she let herself go, or so they thought. This strong-willed woman had a brilliant plan to rid of these enormous loans. She would use her children to have others assume her life was as bland as a history major. But at nights, she would travel to the alley behind the local Asian Express and participate in blood sports. She had gained a name for herself there, the Monstrous Melons. However, this one night would stand out in particular. This night, the reigning champion would be paying a visit to challenge her directly. The crowd was in turmoil as they arrived, worrying that someone would not make it out of the cardboard ring that night. This got Helen slightly worried, but she shook it off almost immediately. If she could terrify teenage cashiers in a single glare, she could crush this man into despair. 10 minutes had passed. The champion was late. She took this opportunity to break into the Burger King next door and grab 4 sticks of frozen butter. After harassing a random man on the street for a few minutes, she had also successfully stolen a sock. When she returned, the man awaited her. Quickly, she assembled the deadly butter sock. But her opponent had much worse. A ball of dried slime that you would find in a Walmart checkout aisle. You know, the ones that children get into the carpet and that stuff never comes out. "Take your mask off," yelled Helen to the strange man. He said nothing, and then suddenly started lunging at her. She gave a hearty chuckle and leapt up into the sky so he was at her crotch level. With cat-like reflexes, she locked him between her thighs, sitting on his shoulders. The movements were almost too quick to comprehend, but a flurry of dried slime knuckle punches and butter sock beatings to the spine were had. After some time of him being locked between her thighs, Helen realized something was off about the shape and cushion of the man's face. The damage to his face had definitely been done, so her curiosity had gotten the best of her. With one powerful flex of the legs, she crushed the brute's mask. The crowd gasped in awe. It was the face of a panda. They both crumbled to the ground in dismay. "Why are you a panda?" yelled Helen. He did not respond, probably because he was a panda.
I cannot speak. I am a panda.
Okay. Although facial expressions aren't really possible on a panda, it looked as though the swole beast was distraught. The reveal caused so much commotion that the sound of sirens could be heard in the distance. Everyone scattered, but the panda stayed. Curiosity hit Helen once again, so instead of fleeing back to her home, she hid behind a rusted-out dumpster. Minutes passed, and the cops arrived. There was some screaming, then silence. Helen peeked out from the dumpster and saw the cops fleeing in terror, their clothes badly torn. Seemingly satisfied that the panda was now left alone, he casually walked through the front doors of the Asian Express and proceeded to cook up all the veggie noodles available. To this day, the panda has taken over management of the Asian Express and surprisingly improved the ratings by 3.2 stars. Yelp customers still complain about how the food service is slow and half-eaten, but they don't live for long. Because of that, Helen learned how to not chew out a manager when she saw something she didn't like. The end.
Well, you said you'd do a funny one. You delivered.
Helen bringing out the pure Sam Puckett in her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, you're up.
Here we go. The arena. Perry stepped out onto the sand and looked up, shielding his eyes from the sun. All he heard was the deafening cheers of the crowd bumping into the arena. He walked towards the middle of the arena and began to gather the bloody body parts strewn across the stained sand. He piled them onto his shield and headed back towards the opening he came from previously. He threw them into the fire, burning in the corner of the cell blocks, repeated this task until the sand was clear.
He then set upon his next task of shoveling the bloodied sand so it settled to the bottom. Once the arena was completely clear, Perry moved back to his cell he occupied. He gave his pet slime some head pats and began to strip off his bloodied clothes. He changed them out for a fresh set of linen and began to cover them with his heavy armor. He heaved a sigh as he put on the heavy breastplate. The slime buddy whimpered and nuzzled up to his leg. Perry kneeled down as best as his tired knees would let him and reassured the slime. Don't worry, little buddy. I'll be just fine. You'll see me again. Once his armor was on, he headed for the door. Slime buddy raced towards the door for one last pat, but Perry stopped him. You'll get more when I get back, little buddy. The slime whimpered as Perry's back got smaller. He arrived at the weapons rack and grabbed the melon squasher. It was a double-handed hammer, which deals terrible damage. It wasn't the fastest weapon, but it could bring down an opponent with one hit. Hey, Panda, watch where you're going. Perry turned to see his jailer, huffing towards the row of bloodied clothing in the pile. He pulled out a sock from the pile and put it on his left foot. Perry prepared himself for battle and walked over to the opening. He was the last fight of the day. He was facing a new opponent who was rumored to be a general in the Emperor's personal guard. At last, the announcer stepped onto the field of sand and announced Perry's fight. Showgoers, one and all, this is the fight you've been waiting for. For your Bloodsport entertainment, I present to you the reigning champion, Perry the Panda. With the announcer motioning towards Perry, he rushed out onto the sand, placing himself to the left of the announcer. And a new contestant has been added to the rosters. He is an ex-general with advanced military training, Fiber the Siberian Tiger. From the right, a low roar vibrated from under the arena. Cyber burst from the opening and placed himself to the right of the announcer. The announcer concluded his epic detailing of the fight to come and got out of their way. Perry looked up to the crowd and scanned it. He saw many of the noblemen who cheered him on during his good days and head on bad days. He was growing tired of this life. The announcer started the fight, and Perry immediately jumped away from Cyber, gaining distance to be able to swing his hammer. But what he was not prepared for was the speed of a trained general and the swing of a trained sword. Cyber immediately drew blood from a long, deep gash on Perry's right arm, leaving it incapacitated. Perry had to rely on the strength of causing the swing to drift to the left. Perry's first swing was unsuccessful, narrowly avoiding Cyber's left shoulder. Perry soon realized that even with both arms able to function, he would not be able to hit someone swift. Seeing his end at hand, Perry threw down his hammer. He stood there, in the center of the arena, and looked up at the sun. He opened his arms out to his sides and smiled. Cyber ran him through with the sword, painting the sand. And Perry lurched forward, grabbing onto Cyber, still holding the sword, hilt deep into Perry's abdomen. He whispered into Cyber's ear, "Thank you." Perry crumpled to the ground, a lifeless corpse, just like those he saw this morning. Cyber, dazed and confused, looked down at Perry and dropped the sword from his shaking hand. He slowly backed away from the corpse, now realizing he granted death to one so tired of life. Cyber was declared the victor, but felt remorse for the death of one who deserved to live life with freedom. He toured the cells. As he toured the cells, he came across a locked door with no occupant, only a little slime buddy. He asked the guard on duty who the cell belonged to and immediately crumpled to the ground. It was Perry's. His little slime buddy, waiting patiently for head pats he will never receive, stood by the cell door. Cyber asked for the keys and the slime buddy down to his own cell. He decided to carry on the life Perry lived. He sat the slime buddy down on the bed, stripped away his armor, threw on his rags for resting, and gave the slime a pat. The end.
Oh, that wasn't as depressing as expecting.
It was depressing to write.
Oh,
It's bittersweet. I like the ending. He
Yeah.
gets the pat still.
Yeah.
Yes.
now I want a pet slime.
I heard Perry the Panda and immediately thought Doofenshmirtz. I'm sorry.
Yeah, same.
That's where
Yeah,
Perry
same.
No, it was Perry.
Curse you, Perry the Panda.
It was Perry the Platypus mixed with the panda from Beastars, basically.
Nice. Alright, guys. Good hustle today.
Yeah.
See you next week.
See you next week.
Price is Right.